for something, but they got hold of my retirement. That's what, and then I found out my mother died while I was away. I didn't know when, but I found out she left me some money.
Uh-huh.
They got hold of that. Everything. I don't have. They got hold of everything I have.
Okay, we
Well,
are
we'll
rolling.
start with this. This is an interview at the Altera Wynwood in Niskayuna, New York. It is the 5th of March, 2007. Approximately 1:15. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Harry E. Colbert, July 24th, 1935, Clayton, Missouri.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to going into the service?
I had about a year and a half of college.
Okay. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted.
And you were drafted into the Army?
Yeah.
And you told me before, but when was that?
1958, June 58.
Okay.
Where'd you go for your basic training?
Fort Hood, Texas.
How long was your basic training?
About 12 weeks. It was supposed to be they stretched it out it was about 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
June, July, and August in Texas.
Well, not a good time to be there.
Every now and then the temperature dropped below 90. Every now and then.
Did you go to a specialty school after basic?
No.
Okay.
What was your training, your basic training, what was it in? Infantry or?
Just regular basic infantry training.
Okay. Where did you go after Fort Hood?
Redstone Arsenal, Huntsville, Alabama.
Now what did you do there?
I was assigned, I've given the MOS of Civil Engineer Assistant. And I worked in a office that did, other places requested modifications to buildings and so forth. I stayed there for a while, and then I was transferred. Well, we got a new supervisor, and he did not like me in the office because I was a black guy in the office, and there were white women in there. He had a fit. He didn't like me, so he had me transferred out, and I was sent to the range, and I worked in the range operations.
Where did Redstone?
Redstone.
Now did you, the Army had been integrated in 1950. Did you find any problems or difficulties, especially being in the South?
Not with the military, but he was the only civilian that he was
he was civilian rather than
Oh,
military.
yeah. I was the only military in my office. They were also civilians. And he was an old-style rebel.
But you didn't run into any other problems in the military
No,
at all?
no,
How
no.
about off base, did you, or?
Off base Alabama in the 50s, late 50s and early 50s, was rigidly segregated. That was before Wallace had made his famous stand in the door of the University of Alabama, so there was no attempt to break down segregation.
Well, you were born in Missouri. Did you have any of the same laws and so on in Missouri growing up there?
Schools were segregated until 1954, but that was the only thing. Public accommodations were not, and then when the schools integrated, they integrated peacefully. There was no problem, and there was just No problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
What about while you were off post in uniform? Any problems or anything, or did it make a
I didn't
difference?
wear a uniform off post.
Okay.
As soon as I was off duty, I changed into civilian if I was going to leave the post.
Okay.
Now, did you live on base, or did you
Oh,
live
yeah.
off?
I lived in the barracks.
Mhm.
What rank were you at that time?
Private.
Okay.
Now, what were your duties on the Arsenal range? You said you worked
I
on the
did.
range.
Primarily surveying. I worked on the flight test range and we surveyed where the rounds landed and calculated the distance and the trajectory and how far off target they landed, things like that.
Okay. Were those your duties your entire time in the service?
More or less, after I was booted out of that office I worked in, those were my,
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting. We, at that time, the Army didn't handle, well, they handled ballistic missiles, but that was another company. And they did their testing at White Sands, New
Mhm.
Mexico.
Mhm.
But later on, they transferred all the big boomers to the Air Force. The
Now,
Army.
what size missiles and so on, rockets that were you working with?
Well, it was rockets, really.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess the ones that were used by artillery and tanks. No ICBMs or anything.
Right. They were like the smaller moldable tubes that you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I guess so. You worked there until you were discharged.
Yeah.
All right. Were there any incidences, funny happenings, or things you remember that you'd want to talk about?
No, we had a special, our detachment was a special detachment.
What was your unit called?
It was called Detachment A, Army Rocket and Guided Missile Agency. And most of the guys in it had been to engineering school. A lot of graduate engineers, guys who didn't go through ROTC. It was practically an all draftee unit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When were you discharged?
June the 10th, 1960.
Okay. Were you eligible for any GI, under the GI Bill at all?
Not originally, but later on they added, and I got, I think, my last course in school under the GI Bill. And I'm still eligible for VA benefits. I go to the, I've been to the VA hospital in Albany and so forth. What's that, Stratton?
Stratton, yes.
What kind of work did you do after the service?
Believe it or not, I worked for the Army, the Corps of Engineers.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. I worked for the Army Corps of Engineers, St. Louis District, until I was assigned a section that work wasn't very challenging or exciting. So a job came up at the Army base at Fort Dix, New Jersey. And I got a promotion by going there. And I stayed there till I retired.
No, were you a quartermaster supply at Fort Dix?
Oh, no. I was a civil engineer assigned to the facilities engineering
Okay,
outfit.
okay. The reason I asked that, I remember speaking to a gentleman here a couple months ago that was assigned to the quartermasters at Fort Dix.
I had no idea where they were.
Did you join a, like the American Legion at all,
No.
or anything like that?
No,
Did you stay in contact with anyone that was in service with you? Or
no, I didn't.
how do you think your time in the service?
After I got out of the service, I went back to finish school, and
Mhm.
so I had no time to contact anybody else. I was too busy trying to finish school, and I was working at the same time.
Where did you get your degree?
Washington University in
Oh.
St. Louis.
Okay. How do you think your time in the service had an effect on your life?
Well, it was interesting. I didn't get to travel though. I was hoping to go overseas, and I didn't get to go overseas. When I was at Fort Hood, that was the 2nd Armored Division, and it was a training division for the 3rd Armored in Germany. And most of the guys at Fort Hood ended up going to Germany. I was hoping to go overseas, but I never made it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your interview.
All righty.